Welcome back. Let's get into it. The diaspora is powerful. They send money home, they promote our culture abroad, and many of them still dream of one day returning home. But they're really in touch with the day-to-day realities of Nigerians on the ground. And when they try to take leadership roles, why does the system often chew them up? Helping us unpack this layered conversation is our guest, Ayobami Olunloyo, son of the late former governor of Oyo State, Victor Omololu Olunloyo, and a man who sits at the intersection of heritage, policy and global exposure. He's an accomplished professional, entrepreneur and board member with experience in creative media, business operations and corporate strategy. He's a resilient business leader with repeated success in building, training and leading large teams to deliver long-term organizational efficiency and effectiveness goals. Ayobami is passionate about public speaking, a passionate gift that he has expressed as a compere, moderator and event host for over 2 decades. With deep roots in Nigerian politics and personal experience navigating the world between home and abroad, he brings rich insight into this dual identity dilemma. Ayobami, welcome to the big conversation.
Thank you very much.
It is so good to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
I'm sure you met some of the ladies as well on the table.
It is so
good
by the
to
way,
have
I come with my glasses.
so I'm the only one once again without glasses at the table. But it's okay. I mean, you are the son of the Voso.
Well, big shoes.
Yeah.
Big shoes.
How did it feel growing up, you know, as the son of the Victor Omololu Olunloyo?
I think the truth is, like any family, being the son of someone, you really just see them as dad. And it's the world and the externals that see it different.
Right.
And ultimately at home, he really was just daddy. And he did so many things, achieved so many things. Yeah. But the things that the world sees is what sort of inspires, you know, us at home and helps us to go on a journey of life that is one that holds legacy, holds values and things that you want to achieve, partly because of yourself and what you believe in, what your personal values are, but also because of what you've been taught and what you feel you owe society.
Right. I always ask people with parents like yours, what kind of pressures you went through, though, to be the son of somebody like that?
I mean, you know, a lot of people talk about my dad from the perspective of having been governor and so on, the political sort of era. But well before that, he was an academic. He worked a lot, you know, in academia, having himself, you know, gone through the rigors of that. And so he was first rector of the Polytechnic here in Nevada, which is a whole different conversation this morning.
Right.
Yeah, and in those roles, and also as executive director of the National Science and Technology Development Association, NSTD, in Lagos, these were roles in which he essentially wanted to engineer growth through intellectual pursuits. And I think that really, you know, his time at UI lecturing and all that was just about developing knowledge and expertise. The whole Polytechnic era was about creating vocational opportunities for Nigerians to be able to deliver the dividends of, you know, knowledge and expertise to drive the economy.
Right.
So all these things, you know, are the things that for me, if you're speaking about pressures, you know, I'd be sitting in the car with my dad when I was much younger and we were driving on and he would say, factorize that number, the number of the car in front. You know,
he was a mathematician. Yes, super brilliant, genius, by the way. All right, okay. Did you take any of that? Did you take any of the math?
You know, I had to take a sip right there, you know.
The pressure.
Of course, you know, the heat. But it became fun, you know, and he and I were breaking down numbers and saying, 2 to the power 3, 2 to the power 4 plus this plus that is what makes that number. And that was kind of like normal life, believe it or not. So, but it was good because then it gives you the strength, the resilience to just be someone who is connected to many things. Knowledge is vast, and it may be political, economic, or, you know, numerical, verbal, language, whatever. He encouraged you to learn more.
Right. I don't know if any of you ladies know anyone whose maybe dad was or is a politician, but I remember having this conversation with the late Abisola Kolada is here as well. Every time I see someone who's, the downside really is when they're insulting politicians, how do children of politicians feel when they're insulting the Nigerian government, the leaders, past and present? I mean, the downside of that is you are caught in the crossfire somehow.
Indeed. But again, I think it's a function of the age you're at when those things happen. So when my dad was governor in 83,
1983, how old were you guys?
Yes.
I was 1.
I was 3.
I was born.
Let's just leave it at that. You existed. Yeah. So in many ways, people say he was ahead of his time. But so yeah, some of those things you don't necessarily experience. But in later life, in growth, then you become conscious of the things that are going on. So the truth is, I think democracy has byproducts, which is, for example, people have the right to have opinions.
Yeah.
And they must be allowed to have their opinions. And their opinions must count in every regard, whether you agree with them or not. The opinions must exist. So for me, you know, I've learned to listen and try to listen, you know, and not necessarily be so personal that it's about this, about that. Yeah. Because ultimately, anyone could be wrong, including my dad. You know, so it isn't, you know, a perfect science, but you just have to be able to let people speak their mind. And I think that is the beauty of democracy. Just allow people be.
Fantastic.
So clearly you're a multi-potentialite.
Yeah, it does a lot of things.
Clearly, you do a lot of things. I'm tempted to.
Yes.
Trying to put that into a basket is difficult because. But my question is, how do you streamline all of that into what the common man can benefit from you?
I think that's a great question. Thank you, Chisom. I think it's based on opportunity and what faces me at the end of the day.
Maybe you can start with your dad. Then,
my dad,
then
okay.
You move to yourself.
Okay, so for my dad, he was someone who was involved in many things. As I said, academia was kind of like a foundational part. But that kind of translated at home because he was always a teacher. He had a teaching spirit. You know, whether it was on the road, jumping out of the cars and directing traffic.
Really?
And he did that, you know.
Interesting. Wow.
Not once. Or he was, you know, at a shop and someone said something maybe about the business and he would, you know, inform or lecture or advise or whatever. He was always teaching in some way or the other. And I think I caught that spirit. I caught that spirit. So, you know, so my style of comparing or moderating is kind of thinking about it now, leans in that direction. You know, I'm always wanting to leave people with something new that they've gained, you know, before.
From that interaction.
Exactly, from the interaction. So I think that's one of the things I would say.
We love it. Okay, so today we're talking about this Nigeria diaspora, because you lived a big chunk of your life abroad.
Yes.
You know, and then, so I don't know if you also get that.
Not originally by choice, but I did.
Yes, and I know some of you also have siblings abroad. You know, there are people who have lived abroad, and there's this Nigerian thing. This way we look at people who come back and think you don't feel what we feel, especially when they're abroad and they are trying to feel very patriotic. I want to ask the ladies first. Do you feel like people who are abroad, diasporans, can feel can be as connected to Nigeria as we are? Because sometimes when they are giving hot takes, do you sometimes feel like no?
I mean, especially if they only just left. I mean, they've lived it to a large extent.
That's what I wanted to say.
So my siblings didn't leave as teenagers. They left 4 years ago, 6 years ago. So I mean, they felt the brunt of the insecurity, hospital mismanagement, and all of that. So I mean, I would respect their views about certain things. The only area we fight though is when they want to translate money. So for example, maybe I'm lamenting to my sisters, I took, if I sent me to go and make her hair, I think I had to pay like 110k. They smirk. I'm like, that's only $40. I'm like, don't do that. No, exactly. Don't try that. You know that hair. So that's the only where I think you people have lost you've lost touch. So I think that's the area I think most of them, because I mean, I don't blame them. They're spending in forex.
Exactly.
But my own reality is naira. So you can't be converted to the forex and telling me I should not lament about a hair. So that aside that, I think I think.
How about you? Do you get that when people look at you like you don't get it?
Yeah, I get that, but and I think it's fair enough that people might think that, and I think, you know, your point there is about people who have recently left, so they're still, and I think you used the phrase in touch, out of touch, you know, as the case may be. But I think in that case, that's one way of being relevant. You have recently been involved. Another way of being relevant, I think, is that you are often enough around, which is, I think, is my reality. I tend to be in Nigeria quite often. I try to be, I want to be. I know people who have no desire, no interest in coming back to Nigeria.
Whatsoever.
They've been scarred.
Yes, they've been scarred. They are not interested in whatsoever, you know, in any dimension. So for me, it is, I said something before, you know, about using the word responsibility, and I think that's the point for me, right? I don't have my love for Nigeria out of personal gain or what I want. It's just something, and it goes back to my dad, it must do. the decision to love this country is something that I have been shown along my trajectory of growth.
Right.
And it is ever keeps drawing me back. So for me, that's the passion. And I want to be able to serve, because there are 220, 50 million people now who deserve the best opportunities that life presents.
Right.
And Nigeria is a place where that should be the case for everyone, if not for one word, leadership. And I think that is where, you know, the core of our problem is. How can we fix that? And that's not to throw stones at anyone, to say anyone is the problem. But leadership is moving people from here to there.
Yeah.
And if we're here and not moving to there,
Yes.
then there's a leadership problem.
Absolutely.
So that's all.
Yeah, but Chisom, do you also feel that resentment that Nigerians, there's something, I don't know if it's a complex, maybe we can be honest. Sometimes there's a complex of, who are you to come from, you know, your cushy comfort zone, and especially when they're coming to sort of contest in elections. I don't know if if you've ever experienced that or get that sense sometimes that, okay, because we have had a situation in this table where it feels like we've talked about how even foreign certificates, people respect it more than people who go to university here.
Yeah.
So I think, is it a complex, or how do we get over that resentment for someone who is, you know, coming from that part of the world?
So first of all, it's in the emotions. I don't have any resentment for people in that, you know, but I just feel like if anybody is coming in to do anything in any country, it means the person, first of all, has some level of passion or something to bring, you know, and it's not, so I'm more of a positive. So, but one thing that's always stuck with me is, while we were growing up, my dad never had a university certificate, but he's in college, but he went to Japan, he went to Korea, he went to all sorts of different places, yes. And he never agreed for us to travel until we are of age. So, and, you know, looking back now and thinking retrospectively, I just understand him, that he wants us to take something from here, from within to without, from local to global. And that's exactly, if anybody is coming back here, I feel that the person has something to give. I'm the positive person. Until you prove yourself otherwise, you know, in the way you interact with the locals, the way you interact. So you know, you don't want to mess with the locals. You don't want to get yourself, your brown brooks messed up.
Right.
Then I have a problem with that. Then it means that you're coming to take, or you're coming to, you know, exploit.
Reap from somewhere you kind of have.
So let me quickly add. So why I would even almost trust someone who's been there more than somebody who's been here, especially if the person was here initially and then maybe left maybe for secondary school or university and stayed back, is because the person is probably not as greedy. Because the person is probably, I mean, he already has, he's not going there because, I mean, money would come, but it's not going there because I want to harness everything. It's coming from a place of, its perspective, it's broader.
More expanded.
It's already
more
comfortable.
exposed.
What can I do? It's more exposed. So what can I really do? I mean, if the money comes, fine. So I'm not saying everybody might not know, but I mean, it's about the ratio. So maybe the guys here are probably doing 80-20. 80 more for themselves, 20, then it will probably be like 70. They are more interested in actually doing something. And then, I mean, so that's why I would even, honestly, so when the other guy came and was against the current governor of Lagos State, he actually was my junior.
Which one? Rhodes Vival?
Yeah, he was actually my junior in IS. So I was impressed. The Lagos State aspirant, the young architect.
Rhodes Vival.
As in, I was, because I was like, oh yeah, I know him.
Bade. Yes.
I was like, I mean, he's coming from, I mean, he's coming from his old money, his wife's old money. So they have the money, so they're not looking to come and chase. Hey. So I mean, that is my mindset. Right. Like that's they're not hungry.
Right.
So they're probably coming with a different. I mean, change is the only constant thing. If we're doing something the same way, or it's not working.
I know
maybe somebody with a different perspective should come and just help us. You understand?
Can I just interrogate that point about the essence of the difference anyway? You know, this whole you come back and people see you different.
Yes.
The question is why? Because if we have a value system...
We're jealous. Like we're jealous. Like you just like...
But there you go.
Some people are...
But maybe we think that...
Or maybe you're too soft. And you know how we also thrive on suffering here in Nigeria. So you haven't suffered. How do you want to...
Honor.
Exactly.
So, you know,
suffering Olympics. We do suffering Olympics in this country. But yes.
But I guess the point is, you know, when we have a perspective that shows that we're all in it together.
Yeah.
And also we have the same vision. We have the same intention to make a better Nigeria. And it may sound simple, naive, you know, whatever, but we need to get to that point to be able to then say, you may be coming from the diaspora, you may be, you know, home-based,
Right.
but we have the same intention.
Yes.
How can we work together? Because the truth is, the diasporans are ambassadors for the country.
Truly.
We may not have intended it, but these are people who have gone out of the country to learn,
Right.
to understand, and see what can be and how things could be. It will be a dereliction of duty if we turn around and say, we don't care about what you have to offer. And I think diasporans as well need to be more humble,
Right.
listen, understand, and be able to contribute in a way that ends up being not, you know, opportunists, but real partners.
Right, right. But do you think a lot of diaspora or Chinese underrate the complexities?
No, there's more than
Because
underrated.
a lot of people have this, even people when they
More
come
than
for Dirty
underrated.
December,
They do.
and then they think, oh, let me live in
Yeah,
Nigeria.
yeah.
Dirty December,
The
Nigeria is
experience
nice.
of 2 days, 2 weeks,
Yeah.
it's not living.
It's not
you
the
know,
same.
you know, you stay in an apartment, it's service, there's
Yeah.
power all
You-
the time.
all your friends have
that is
time
fine.
for you.
Yes, exactly.
Because they have taken
And
time
then
off
time
work.
And then
Yes.
suddenly everybody goes back to
Yeah.
work. Yeah, you know, the reality of it is that living is not the same as just popping in. But I think the most important thing is that people who desire to actually contribute in a more long-term way should be accepted and pulled in, rather than you're not one of us.
Yeah.
And I think there's so much more that divides us as Nigerians. We divide ourselves along all sorts of
Tribal
lines. Tribal,
lines.
cultural,
Yes.
location, you know, state of origin. Are you from here? Are you from there?
Yeah.
Whatever it is, we divide ourselves by so many things. And I think as in Nigerians, we need to start aggregating more because the strength of the nation is in the amalgamation of all the strengths of the people.
But I also do think that if you have a proven track record, then people will probably adjust better. So, for example, during the NSAS, there were people that came out in their different countries.
Yeah.
To, So, I mean, if you're coming to Nigeria and saying you want to be a governor, and I see that you're one of the people that was making noise on the streets of London, I would probably, okay,
Yes.
okay, you know,
Yeah.
that there's been, obviously he's very passionate about this, and it's not just waking up one day,
Has a track
and then
record.
I'm not seeing anything you ever said online, to actually talk about some issues, and then you just wake up one day. So I probably would take that person more seriously than I'll take you, you know.
And the person
Yeah.
that goes on Twitter, on
Ranting.
X, and rants about
Yes.
bigotry, people like Igbo people buying up land where you have deserted. It's crazy.
No, that's a great point. But I think we need to be constructive in our conversations. What adds value rather than I'm just saying.
Right. I mean, what do you say to people who say you are probably just here to benefit off of legacy? Your dad has built a huge legacy.
Yeah.
You know, so what do you say? There are people like that. I remember even when I talk about the IJGBs a lot, I remember when his daughter too was kind of getting involved, and people talk about nepotism, talk about, what do you say when people say you're just here to benefit off of legacy, as, you know, as opposed to just reconnect?
I think it's fair enough that they might think that because there are instances of that. So it would not be unusual for people to think that.
And is there anything wrong with benefit of a legacy?
I think it's more of
if
harnessing
my
the
father has done
legacy.
There's
something,
nothing
So-
wrong.
Leno,
The truth-
harness the legacy. That's what
Yeah.
he came to do.
The truth of the matter is that my dad didn't leave, you know, billions of naira and riches and all that. What he did is to build a name. That's really what he
Very
did.
important.
And that name sits on integrity, it sits on values, it sits on the ability to do things with excellence. That's what it did. So if benefiting from that is the issue, that's not how I see it. I see it as a continuity. Because one of the things that I am confident that people are not able to say is that my dad stole this or that in public office. And if anyone wants me to recline from that, I will not, because I'm very proud of what he did.
Fantastic.
In a space where that is unusual.
Right.
Very
And my
unusual.
responsibility is not only to continue and maintain what he has done, but to share it even wider as the way that we should live,
Right.
as politicians, as leaders, in whatever realms of responsibility we find ourselves.
She's not looking like she has your votes. You have her votes.
But
If you contest now, she's not voting for you. So what she look like,
but from all you said, I'm clearly, yeah, that's the track, that's the path you're on.
I believe
Yes.
God's will. You see, let me say, well, that's a
Yeah,
great.
are you
It's a
pitching
great.
me?
It's a great point.
No.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
saying that because
It sounds very-
he's saying it in the like in current. And
Yes.
that's what,
Yeah.
not like hypothetically. So
Yes.
I'm thinking.
I feel like
it's looking like
his dad is finding a way to live through him. And he's the one that is always calling him back home.
So are we seeing it like a passing of the baton?
So I have lots of siblings that I love.
Okay.
Yeah. But this has been said. Yes.
Wow.
This has been said.
Okay.
And you see, I feel as if there is it's not ambition.
Right.
It's not desire even. It's responsibility. And when I look back, Ibadan or your state, Nigeria,
Right.
we have a responsibility, especially to whom much is given.
Yeah.
Much is expected.
Yeah.
I have had opportunities that are beyond anything I could have
Right.
imagined in terms of education,
Right.
exposure, ability to be wherever I have been by God's grace.
Yes.
And all those things count for coming back to be a part of the solution. A lot of people talk and speak about the problems. What are you going to do about it?
Right.
And for me, that's where I feel I come in.
Right.
So I am not, whatever God leads me to do in terms
Yes.
of, opportunity to serve, it is that, to serve.
Right.
But
Nigeria
there's 20
Nigeria can stay your wife.
Yes, so that part of staying his
Yes.
wife is where it's more of like an advice, a suggestion, or
Yeah.
just
Or
a part for you to talk.
warning.
See, replicating your DNA. 1, 2, building a team around people who share your point of view and your
Values,
values, because
Very critical.
they will stay in your wife.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you gotten that warning in recent times that Nigeria can stay in your wife?
Not in recent,
You're a
but
great guy,
constantly.
Obami. I know you.
But you see, this is the thing. I could be very, very comfortable
Right.
and not get involved.
Okay.
And the
Yeah,
attraction is
true.
not
And then
because I want to get involved. The sensible thing to do would probably be not to get
Exactly.
involved.
Because I have friends that
But-
have always had this demeanor, and
Yes.
when they are now, they're honorable, and when
They've changed.
when I congratulated them, I said,
Please stay this.
I don't know if you
Don't
can
let them
remain
change.
Like
like
this.
this, and I can tell you for free that I'm not sure. I think and can you blame them?
Seen the
They're
switch.
like in the middle of sharks,
Yeah.
so you have to be a shark to be able to cope.
But to speak
That's
about
why I
that,
say
I mean, that opens up a whole...
That's coming from a blue zone to a red zone.
Yeah, it's a great point. It opens up a whole conversation, and Ronka, you and I have talked about this in the past. So, I am part of the School of Politics, Policy and Governance, which is
Yes.
part
Okay,
of the Fixed
SPSS.
Politics.
That's
yeah.
by Mrs. Obi Esekwe.
Yeah, the Fixed Politics Initiative. And one of the core tenets and the vision of the organization is not to produce good people, it's to produce good leaders en masse. So the vision of the organization was to, for example, produce 5,000 new political leaders of a whole new different mindset with character, competence, and capacity to lead. But to release them over a 10-year period, about 5,000 people. Why do I say this? This is because the point you're making and the experiences that you've had and examples you've shared are all about people who have gone into this whole system as individuals, trying to create change as an individual. And it can't happen simply by... And so good people are moved, shaped by an overwhelming environment. So if we're going to overwhelm the environment, we have to be
have the
en
numbers.
masse. We have to have the
Right.
numbers.
Now maybe I can be swayed because me,
Yeah.
I've always told you politics. I mean,
Yes, you should
Yeah.
actually go
because
there.
people
That's
always tell
what-
me, "But you have the charisma." I'm like, let me just be in my corner,
Absolutely.
make
And-
my impact. But with this kind of
Yes,
vision, I'm
and
thinking, okay,
that's why I believe strongly about the vision of that organization, Fixed Politics, because as an individual, it's sharks,
can't do
and you
it.
are one little
Unfortunately, I think
Yes.
they've left
Yeah.
Ibadan. SPSS has left Ibadan. I think.
SPPG. No, it's
yes.
a whole global,
it's virtual
online.
as well.
It's virtual,
Yes,
yeah. So
yes.
the experience is wherever you are. There are people who join from China and so on and so forth. They're diasporans, but of course the majority are in Nigeria. But the point is, and also creating ethical leaders is not just in the political space. It's also in the private sector. So if you're CEO of bank
Exactly.
and leader of hospital, when you understand that there are values that you must hold on to in terms of delivering what you say you will do, doing it with integrity and all that, then when you are the hospital manager who's trying to create a chain of hospitals and you need people in the Ministry of Health
You can
who are going to
cross
create
across and pick
policies,
them up.
Yes.
then you are cross-pollinating
Yes,
with people
so
of
true.
like minds.
So true.
But if you have, a working private sector and a derelict public sector,
Yes.
it still doesn't work.
Absolutely.
So it has to be a cross-pollinated.
Cross-sector.
Because people talk about, politicians steal money. There are people in private organizations that steal even more than
There are
politicians.
people in,
Yes.
I was going to say religious organizations.
Oh, say it.
So
So-
I was going to say, give that example.
Yeah.
Like when we were asking, like, how does it cope when people drag politicians?
Yes.
But I'm a PK. I'm a
Pastor's kid.
Justice kid, yeah.
So I'm also in that crossfire
Yeah.
sometimes. People are like, I beg,
the
can you
pastor's
come
alliance,
like, because
yeah.
it will always happen, and
Right.
you know your truth,
Right.
you know your reality, you know
Right.
what you grew up with. My father doesn't have any money like that, so
Yeah.
so me, I know that he's one of those
Yeah,
that
exactly. Needs to
he's
let
the word
anybody's
of
money.
God and the word of God only, you know, that kind of
Right.
thing. But again, that doesn't mean they're lying.
Yeah.
No.
That doesn't mean they're lying, because there are also definitely
People
some,
who are, yes,
you know,
of
religious
course.
sectors that
Religious
we
sectors,
all,
private sector.
Yeah,
Yeah,
all
and
things
to that
like
point, I think
Comes
the issue
across.
we have as Nigerians when it comes to integrity and all that is not a sector problem. It's a national
it's an
problem.
yes.
And we can't take out any sector because if you are a person that doesn't have integrity,
Anywhere you
it
are.
will flow out
are.
wherever you
Yeah.
are,
So
you know,
true.
and that's
So
the
true.
issue.
So
So, yeah.
One of the key things we mentioned is, I mean, we are divided by ethnic lines and all.
Yes.
What do you, because I mean, for someone who's going to come to Oyo State to become a politician, for example, you've got to know the language. You've got to know how to do the amala thing. I don't know. Have you
Especially in this state.
had to think about that?
Absolutely. And the truth of the matter is, you know, this is an English show, so let's not
Yeah.
break out. Let's not break out into.
Really?
We have an audience here, you know. But truth is, if in Rome, be like the Romans.
Really?
That is the
I agree.
truth. And it's important to be connected in a way that is relevant. Not just for show.
Right.
In fact, not for show at all, but for relevance. And for not relevance for you, but to make people feel that they are relevant to your
I agree.
cause.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So that people feel as if, yeah, he may have answers, he may have solutions, but are those my answers and my solutions? And if you can connect with people at that level,
Right.
then they can say, that's our guy, because
our guy.
he believes in what we believe in,
Right.
and we trust him to do what he says he will do. But more than that, we trust him to listen to what we need, and him delivering on
But,
that.
I don't know, but that is really important. Like
Yeah.
what we talked about a few days ago with some governors coming up with some bogus amount to renovate
Yes.
places, and we're like, it's like they're being tone deaf,
deaf,
because
right.
people are hungry, the hospitals are there, the schools, there are many schools unkept, and then we want to
That's the
spend that
focus.
amount
Yeah,
of
yeah.
money
Yeah.
renovating, like,
The
like they're
three
not
top,
listening.
I mean, if government is not delivering,
primary school
Yeah.
children have been
Yes.
almost in March, I
Protests.
think.
Yeah.
Has it been at
Protests,
home?
yes.
if government isn't delivering for the people, then what is
Yes.
its essence? What is it there for? You know, security, healthcare, education.
Right.
If those things are not taken care of, then what are you doing?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I
Wow.
wanted to find out,
Yeah.
you know, so you are here. How are you bringing your squad from there? Do you have a squad at all?
The squad can be built here.
Yeah.
No, like,
Or a
we
mix.
need the money. Correct.
Oh, okay,
Coming
that's
with
it.
it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's a good point. But I think networks are important. Yeah. So what do they say? Your network
Network
is your net
Network.
worth.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. But networks are not location based. They are values based. So there are people who are connected to the cause that you're interested in, and you pull them in whatever case. Some people, you know, talent, treasure, you know, and time, talent, and treasure. Those are the three things, right? So people will give of themselves. You know, there's a lovely young lady here amongst us who's given of her time. You know, there are people who will give of treasure, give of. But the point is, I feel you can't be driven by that. You must be driven first of all by values, because there are people who are rich and don't share your values.
Right.
And so if you take their money
They start to influence
Yes.
your values.
So
and you start to be indebted to the wrong people.
Exactly.
And I think that's an important point.
Very important.
You know, so the layers don't start with what you can offer. They start with if you connect with what we're trying to achieve.
Right.
And what we're trying to achieve must always link back to the people, the common person, not man, because we always say common man. Women exist, by the way, guys.
Absolutely.
You know, the common person. And I think ultimately we have to be people of integrity right through the chain, not when it matters or when we,
Benefit
when
from
it benefit from it.
yes.
If integrity is integrity, and sometimes you say no or you take a loss because the values don't match.
Whew, oh my goodness, such rich perspectives so far. Thank you so much, Ayobami. Now let's switch gears briefly for our life hack of the day, and then we'll dive into our interactive segment, Agree or Disagree, where we don't shy away from strong opinions. So we'll be right back.
Thank you.
Welcome back. Thank you for sticking around with us on the big conversation. We're having such a rich, conversation today, and I'm so excited. So get in the comment section if there's anything that resonates with you. We want to hear your views. Get in the comment section right now. But hey, actually, maybe you might need to pause because we're about to play our agree or disagree game. And the question for today is, many diasporans suffer from romanticized patriotism. Many diasporans suffer from romanticized patriotism. Let's hope nobody agrees today. All right, let's see. Ebon. Many, I always like the semantics. Always looking at, okay, many. Many, many, all. Exactly.
Doesn't mean all.
I was always dissecting the nomenclature. Okay, many diasporans suffer from romanticized patriotism. Chisom, are you ready with your answer? Do you agree or disagree? You disagree. Ebon, you agree. Ayobami. Ooh, I agree. Okay, we have 2 agrees and 2 disagrees. You haven't met Osari yet, but every time on the show, when she says you will defend your answer. All right, let's Ayobami defend his answer today.
Can I just see the words again,
Okay.
if possible?
All right,
Because I want to do the breakdown thing.
many
diasporans
diasporans suffer from romanticized patriotism. Naija for life. We pinned there.
Many, remember
Naija
the
no dey
words.
carry last.
Many,
but
not all,
they are doing it from
but
they are doing it from
many.
Oxford Circus.
I agree.
They are
Many.
doing it from
I think that... Okay, the reason I disagree is not so much about the romanticized patriotism part. It's about the fact that before people become diasporans, right, there are 2 types. People who go out. And remember I said at the start, it wasn't by choice.
Yes.
I went to school during the military era. So literally the schools were closed.
Right.
So my education will have stood still if I hadn't had the opportunity. But I recognized that opportunity itself was a privilege.
Yeah.
So thank God for that.
Yes, so please.
Yes, thank God for that. But the point is, I think I disagreed because when people become diasporans, some of them go out on circumstances like mine, but others go out on the Japa syndrome.
Right.
Do you see? And I think those are 2 different things.
Right.
So the people who kind of say all these things, maybe my interaction recently has been more with people who don't care. They just want to get out.
Yeah.
Do you understand? So the patriotism, they believe they're Nigerians, they love Nigeria, but people say things that I wouldn't say. I don't want to have anything to do with that country and this and so on and so forth. So for me, I felt that, and it may be down to Nigeria's own impact on them.
Yes,
and that's where we
some
have
of them
to,
have been traumatized.
Yeah, they've been traumatized. They've lost,
in a hospital
So- So I think ultimately my point is that people don't even care enough to care whether or not they is romanticized or not.
Right.
And I think that's why I disagreed.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Chisom. So
Exactly.
That's
my
my point.
point.
right.
They don't care.
Yeah.
They no longer care once they leave. They don't
I
care.
don't care to even be
So
patriotic
it's not this
or
one
to
you're saying.
romanticize
It's
anything.
not
No,
giving them-
okay, so why?
If you said all, then I
Right.
would have. Yeah.
Yes.
But the point is, there are
don't
quite a lot of
care.
people who do.
Yes, who
They don't
just
care
don't care.
anymore.
Okay, so why I said agree is, even though there are quite a lot of people that don't care, but many being the watchword, there are people that, but then see, when you romanticize something, it means, maybe it's a bit superficial. So it means that you would romanticize it online, write the most elaborate posts
Get on Twitter,
Twitter,
yes. Especially
it
on
goes
Independence Day.
viral on October 1st, you're leading the
30
whatever,
December.
whatever, what have you really done?
Done.
Yeah.
So that's what you mean by romanticizing something.
Yes.
So so it's a bit superficial, it's a bit flowery, but then what have you done about the nitty-gritty?
Yeah.
What suggestions have you done?
Right.
What moves have you made? Your immediate local government or community, what have you done for that
Right.
sector? So that's what I mean by, many people probably would, because they are keyboard warriors online, on Twitter, on Instagram, on that. But when you go to the nitty-gritty, they probably don't do anything past that.
Exactly.
space. So I think many people do romanticize
I
it.
quite agree with
I think
Ebo
so.
as well, especially those. We have Dirty December, which has become a thing.
Even Judoba now has become
Yes,
a thing.
and then we have a lot of.
I'm from that place and I've never been there because that crowd. I
Where?
can't. I'm from Jebu, double dose.
Jebu.
But I'm just like, nah, I'm not doing that. I'm not
I
doing
know.
that.
So I see a lot of. I remember this lady was dragged. What's her name? Yvonne Orji. She's a comedian. She's a Nigerian comedian who obviously lives in America. And I remember one Independence Day post that she did the clinic of jollof, and especially this whole jollof thing as well. So especially when people who are diasporans do it. For me, I agree with Ebun that it's easy to say this whole, I'm Naija till I die. Naija no go carry last.
Online, but
online, yes. But beyond that, we know that when, you know what, rubber meets the road, it's like, no. They become, some of those people become those people who now don't even care, you know, but they only care during Independence Day when they want to put out on poetic, you know, caption.
Or they do own content where they wear green, white, green.
Exactly.
And their gilly is very
you
big.
know, and you can tell that their caption is, you know, ChatGPT generated. It's just not really connecting, you know. So that for me is why I agree, because it's easy from there. So actually, because I mean, I've lived abroad, and I know, because you have family here also, to be honest, you know, so you do still have that, no matter what, you have family there. So you're thinking, oh, is my family okay? But, you know, not enough to say, let me come back, like what you're thinking of doing, and sort of put my hat in the ring and
rolling
do something.
Sleeves and actually
rolling up my sleeves.
Because
so
I actually got very angry with one of my classmates. I mean, I went to Grace High School, Bagada, Lagos. So many of them are cut across everywhere. And you see them posting. You know, today you're in Rome, tomorrow you are in Australia. So one day like that, I think it was the Independence or something. Someone just posted something. The way I later apologized, because it's not his fault. But you know, I probably was going through something at that moment, and then you posted something that was off. I just went pa, and I said, oh my God.
But should he not have posted? He's still Nigerian.
You don't understand. He was asking us questions as though, you know, that kind of question you ask somebody.
I see, exactly. What are people doing?
Kind of now. Off.
You know how there's this proverb that says that just because you are lucky doesn't mean you should call your friend a lazy person.
You understand.
You know, so acknowledge our privilege. And that's why I tell people abroad, please acknowledge your privilege and don't come at Nigerians.
Don't come and rub it on me.
Yes, you know, because
I think that's fair enough.
Yeah, so acknowledge your privilege. You're in a place where there's electricity, you know, or even though everyone has their own dilemma, to be honest. You are paying through your nose taxes and bills and all of that.
Exactly.
So, but acknowledge your privilege instead of thinking, Nigerians just don't want to say anything or don't want to do anything. So,
don't think less of anyone, you know, and I think that's where I was saying before, the complement of our views is what takes us forward. But a quick 10-second compliment to my response. I answered the question as I read it.
Yes.
But there's a slightly different camp. There are some people in diaspora who are strongly patriotic. So this group of romanticizing, that was my response. But there are people who are in the diaspora and they are not in the, I'm not romanticizing it, I'm fully on. I'm there.
Like
they're passionate, they're acting it, they come, they go, they do what they do. And so and I think I just wanted to acknowledge that. That of the romanticizing group, but there are some core people who what they do, they mean, and they're extremely passionate.
So quick yes or no. I know Ghana practices diasporan voting. Do you think diasporans should vote, Chisom?
Yes or
yes
no?
Or no.
Answer.
Quick yes or no. They're telling me we gotta go. So quick yes or no. Do you think diasporans should vote? They can't.
They
Or
can
they
or
should
should not be
Exactly. They should not now.
They
They
should
should
not.
not.
Absolutely yes.
Oh, they should vote.
They should vote.
Okay.
I mean, 2015 election, 12 million people voted for the loser, 15 million for the winner, 3 million swing. There's 17 million people in the diaspora. If those people voted, they could switch they could swing any election in Nigeria. But the point is that they're also engaged. You know, they're involved economically. To 20 billion average, you know, Nigerians remit to Nigeria from abroad every year. So, you know, it's kind of like taxation without representation. So we must allow people to vote to be able to have the complete view. And also, apart from the politics of it, countries that we admire, they do it. You know, military people abroad, in the US, all sorts of people vote. But if they want to and they're Nigerians, their location should not preclude them for being able to vote.
I agree. And why I think I agree that people should be able to vote is it makes them believe they have a say and probably will make them more committed to doing more. Because if they know, by just this voting, this happened, maybe I should consider doing more and coming home and maybe.
But Ronnie, before we even go there,
we can't go there,
our
unfortunately.
own votes, does it count?
We gotta, okay.
Does it count? Before we even go there.
Fair point. Fair point. All right, our wise words on the web today is your, actually, we always have our guests read.
You want me to read it?
Yes.
Today is your opportunity to build the tomorrow you want.
All right.
Poirot?
Yes.
Yeah?
Sounds like Poirot. Or if you're Yoruba, Poirot. Anyone. All right, well, what a dynamic and necessary conversation today on The Big Conversation. From calling Nigeria home to shaping her future from afar, we've learned that connection isn't just about location. It's about contribution, courage, and context. Thank you again, Ayobami Olunloyo, for joining us with both clarity and conviction. Let's keep the conversation going online with the hashtag #TheBigConversation. Tag a diasporan, a returnee, or someone who's torn between two homes. Until next time, I'm Ronke Giwa Onofuwa. And this has been The Big Conversation, where we don't just talk, we dare to go deeper. Thank you so much, ladies, and thank you, Ayobami. Until we see you next time, it's been an amazing edition of The Big Conversation.
Thank you, everyone.